It's been a long road to get here, but the day is finally arrived. That's right, the winners bracket finals for North America. The defending champion, San Francisco Shock, taking on the #1 seed in North America, Philadelphia Fusion. Jake, it does not get any better than this.
No, we've got a stacked roster of matches today. I couldn't be more excited, and honestly, it's the best you can expect. Who's going to win these matches? Absolutely nobody knows. I mean, sure, predictions, whatever. I put no stock in them. This is anybody's game. This is playoffs.
Yeah, you take a look at the winners bracket. It was a road to get here and then some, but the top of the top have made it all the way through. And should they win here today, the prize, a trip to Grand Finals weekend here and now. But should they lose, you take a look at the losers bracket. That is a scary road to go down, especially with teams like the Justice waiting in the wings, where it's been scary. You've seen teams get eliminated that you have not expected. And of course, we're going to see a little bit more resolution there later today. But either way, it has been a wild ride here so far, Jake.
Yeah, I think for both of these teams, this match, it carries so much pride on the line. For a team like Philly, who pretty much dominated in their last showing against the Shock, I mean, that obviously felt great for them. But, you know, for the Shock to be coming into this having, for the most part, I think had more success in the matchup throughout the course of the season, having a little bit more depth in their playoff runs. Still, for both of these teams, I think they're coming in expecting to win. I don't think they're coming in thinking it's possible, maybe we could do it. No, both of these teams are coming in with total confidence. But obviously, for one of them, that confidence is going to be shattered today.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the last matchup where, yeah, the Fusion took it away from the Shock, but it was a different meta, and more importantly, it was not playoffs, and the Shock have already proven that they have the constitution of a champion. It's on the Fusion now to show that they can keep up that same level of intensity when it matters most. But now you take a look at the Shock starting lineup, a lot of scary things here. In particular, you think about Striker over the course of the season, probably the biggest threat heading into playoffs, Jake, but also the crazy storyline that is Ons. Ons, a rookie pickup here from the Shock, where the Shock were already loaded with talent. They scoured the world, they picked up Ons, and he's just been a threat that no one expected joining this roster.
Yeah, and I think it's been really his performance on Widowmaker and Ashe that have stunned audiences worldwide, that have, you know, put his name on the map, I think, as one of, if not the best player in that role. But what's more interesting than that is just recently in playoffs, he's made a huge switch. He's been playing a lot of Sombra for this team, which is a role that we really hadn't seen much of him on. So the fact that he has that level of flexibility means Shock can just play whatever strategy they want to play going up against Philly.
On the other side, you take a look at the Fusion starting lineup, and this has been a roster that has been so deep over the course of the season, so willing to swap players in and out, where if you were to tell people a few months back, yeah, it's going to be Fusion in the winners bracket final, but guess what? Carpe is not going to be starting as DPS, and it's going to be completely fine and make sense. I think people would question what you're saying, but you look at a player like Hisu, you look at Ivy, where both have stepped up to the occasion, and Hisu in particular, big hit scan excellence thus far.
Yeah, very precise in the Widowmaker, but also has an incredible Sombra. I think one of the best Sombras, and in playoffs his success has been, I mean, you can't ask for more than this out of a Sombra player. Like, what more could he do? He's got the tactical performance, knowing when to prioritize hacks, but also when it just comes to building EMPs and using them, he's getting it done faster than his opponents almost every time. And that's just an edge that is so hard to beat out when this hero is in the meta. So for the Shock, I think the question is, can they actually match up to that?
Yeah, and I mean, for the Shock, they're a team that is proven under playoff circumstances, but look, every match is a new challenge, and the Fusion, this is sort of their time to shine, where they're the #1 seed, and as you head here into Lijiang Tower, you want to prove it. You want to start out strong and go, look, people have maybe been doubting us for whatever reason in the course of the season, don't know why, given our record, but now, what better way to prove that you're the best than taking down the Shock here and now?
Especially on a map like Lijiang Tower, I think this is always a great start to a series because it's going to show us a lot of diversity, or at least it's very likely. I think, you know, maps like Control Center, things like Symmetra and Junkrat have become the meta there, so it's anybody's guess what we'll see on that map. On the other maps, maybe a little bit more likely to play a classic dive comp, you know, utilizing that Reaper and Sombra, Tracer and Sombra. Right now, Philly Fusion showing a classic Rein Zarya build here, very adept at brawling on point with this comp, but for the Shock, tank's still up in the air. The question is, how much mobility are they going to go for? Is it going to be more of a diving style, or are they going to also commit to a Rein?
Yeah, I mean, we'll know for sure in just a few seconds when the gates open. Teams tinker with it to the very end. The Shock, though, they're going to be heading in with this Winston Diva. A little bit more dive heavy. Meanwhile, the Fusion going to be looking to isolate space with the Reinhardt and the Mei.
Yeah, the Mei is going to be so important here. You have to watch out for Ivy's Ice Wall. He's been great with it all season long, but he needs an isolation. His team will get poked pretty hard by this Reaper Sombra.
Smurf got super low to start things out. The Shock are lucky they didn't lose him in the beginning, but this is what the Fusion are looking for. They're looking to keep point control, use the Reinhardt and the Mei to keep the space locked down.
Yeah, Shock, they need to find an opening here, but Philly isn't giving them an inch right now. They're just forced to give up point control, wait for Coalescence to finish building from Violet. I think that will be their entry call. But look at Ivy. This guy almost has a blizzard before the first fight goes down. There's no way this is going to be expected.
This is really, really good control coming out here from Fusion right now. The Shock, they're just stuck waiting for ultimates, as you mentioned. Now, the Cole is ready to go. Violet's going to drop it. Smurf on the way in. Wall comes out early, blocking away a bit of it. Smurf in danger, just taking on down the Blizzard. Too much control on the point for the Fusion, and the Shock in danger already.
And Fury on Zarya is really a sight to behold. Striker, though, lighting it up with 2 kills. Still fighting back here. Coalescence from Alarm, it should be enough to cut him down. Yeah, Striker, he's out of resources here. And Philly, they've kept control this whole time. Even though Smurf is back, I mean, he's fighting a Reaper and a Moira. Good luck, Winston. Not going to happen that way. And I mean, come on. I don't think anybody would have expected Ivy has Blizzard before the first Coalescence. That's not how it's supposed to be. Blizzard's one of the most expensive ults in the game. You just need to be constantly railing headshots to have that ult online. So, Ivy, a ridiculous performance on mid.
Yeah, I mean, I think... now, and the Fusion are getting a lot of mileage off it here thus far. Striker, though, remaining an X-Factor, nearly turned the fight, but now the wall's out early. The Shock move in. They drop the EMP, it hits 4, but look at that, Astro in with the beat. It's so well timed. Now Fury, gonna drop the Graviton, low HP, still was able to get off, still getting healed all the while. Sato drops the Shatter, but Hisu knocked right off. Smurf able to send him off the edge with the Primal Rage, and Smurf's not done yet.
Oh no, you're fighting Smurf close to the edge of the map with a Primal. That's not a good look, Fusion. They get absolutely chomped on by this angry Winston. Funny Astro, wow, almost got that counter kill actually. That would have been a huge for the retake, but unfortunately cannot find it. And now, this is the really hard moment for the Philadelphia Fusion. This is not their comp strong suit. Crossing to point, not ideal against a dive style when you're playing Rein Zarya. Doing this rotation successfully is going to be super critical.
Well, I think they're just trying to go in and throw an extra rep on the point. They have the Blizzard, and maybe Brute Force is the way to go here. Walls down early. They're on the point. The Shock have already lost their moment of opportunity to cut them off before they get to point, and now as they go in, the Blizzard, it's ready to go. The Shock forced out to a degree, and they don't have much time. The Fusion got the reflip.
And funny Astro, if he realizes that he's got the beat online first, he can actually drop it before Ons has EMP. Coalescence going to have to be enough here to get it done for the Shock. They really need that beat to counter.
Oh, trying to keep Choi alive. Choi has to drop the self-destruct early. Taken down, can't get back into the mech. And Hisu back deals a Striker. Smurf, though, in. And the Shock find a way in off the dive. It was a little messy there, Jake, but it's going to keep them alive. The problem is, with the Fusion getting that reflip, the Shock only have about 29%.
Yeah, and the issue is you may have an EMP here, but funny, Astro has the sound barrier. You know, he dodged it last time. Question is, will he do it again? Let's see what Moth got done here. It was a crucial part of this retake. A lot of cleanup kills for him, working with his Winston and Reaper. But now as Philadelphia come back to point, they've got the tools they need. It's really just on Funny Astro. Dodge this EMP, beat to counter, don't get knocked off by Smurf. It seems simple, but might be tough. Funny Astro caught!
Drops the early Shatter, but the EMP's there from Ons, and the fall through the Shock far better. Takes down Sato Alarm immediately. And once you lose your frontline tank and the Moira, you just got to back out, and that play is crucial, Jake. Now the Shock at 63%. There's a way for them back into this game.
Yeah, it's going to be last fight here, but Philly, I'd say they have the definitive bank advantage here. Looking at Choi Hyo-bin to make a play. Striker as well, hiding, unscouted. There's no Divas EP.
Goes in for the Death Blossom, knocked away the beat from Astro. Just in time, the Fusion staying alive. Sato, though, out of the fight early. Now you gotta look to Fury, holding on to the grab. Hisu, Death Blossom still ready to go. And the Fusion, I mean, they're kind of waiting here, Jake, but I don't know if Sato's going to be back in time. I think he will be, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, they're going to have to make a mad dash to point. Might be on Funny Astro to touch. Looks like Hisu setting up TPing to high ground with Death Blossom as well if he wants to fight point. On's trying to get this EMP up so desperately, getting heavily pressured, though.
Fusion onto the point. Now waiting for the setup. The shock getting forced off. Graviton in early here from Fury. Moth responding with the beat. Smurf mid primal. The fusion. They drop the blizzard.
Hisu
Striker
drops.
is able to find Hisu.
EMP.
Of all things, blizzard or no, and Striker's still on it. 2 so far for Striker. Smurf chasing it down. And the shock, they've brought this one back.
Uncharacteristic mistakes there in the final fight from Philly Fusion. Fury dropped the grab. I believe that was only onto Violet, who just faded out of it. So feeling a bit of pressure to get that ult out and couldn't really find too much impact. I think ultimately Smurf and Choi walked into it late, but at that point the CC value was already lost. So pretty incredible comeback from the shock. I mean, with the way mid-fight went, I mean, Ivy having blizzard off the mid, I thought that round could be open and shut, but somehow, in some way, Shock get right back into it. It all comes back to this boop. I believe this with the how much he got boop, that had to be Smurf and Moth working in conjunction.
Yeah.
So Winston Leaf does not move you that far.
This one from Smurf in general was just insane. I mean, it was, as you say, it was both Smurf and Moth together, just utilizing environmental to the maximum possibility.
We've got a crazy one
hero
coming
play
in.
you need to beat the fusion.
It's full dive. Doom Sombra versus Junk Sim. It's kill or be killed here for the San Francisco Shock. They have to initiate this fight and pick off these very, very dangerous backliners in the Junk and the Sim. But for the Philly Fusion side, I mean, surviving this is going to be difficult. Striker on the Doomfist. He's looking for that clean initiation.
It's stability versus chaos right now. The Fusion are stability. The Shock are channeling strong chaos. And now the Fusion, they're going to try and just win this in the neutral game. Stay behind Sato, react to the dive in, but now the Shock waiting for their opportunity to head in. And you look at Smurf setting up on the back. The Shock are going to wait for Smurf, then go in. But for now, both teams giving each other a lot of respect, Jake, here thus far. Striker nowhere near the HP needed to go in.
Uh-oh, no fade on Moira.
Wait,
Alarm
he's
catches Striker. Can he find the finish?
So close.
He can't.
No,
He
this
punches
is
her killing
a little
Astro,
bit
though.
too much.
Oh, nice hide from Alarm. That's so critical, and I think that will probably just be the fight win. Yeah, Cap comes through early as well, so these cleanup frags aren't really going to benefit the Shock at all. No point to delay. But luckily Smurf manages to get out with some health bar there, so he's going to feed Nano to Violet. And early support ults online for Shock. Philly switching to the Sombra as well. Could pay off in the long run, but this first fight might be hard with only the Riptire to work with.
Yeah, I mean, the Riptire, though, not to be underestimated, especially in this stage, where not only is it good for Junk in close quarters, but you can be sneaky with the tire. Here it goes, Ivy's tire on the way, finds Striker, but comes at a cost. Both teams down 1 DPS early, but Astro chases down Ons.
Ons just got killed out of his EMP. That's a ridiculous swing. Shock gonna beat and commit to this. This is so all in because ZB, I think they're in big trouble if you don't get this flip. You just lost your EMP, you just lost your beat. Smurf finds a kill with the mines, but hacked and almost certainly traded. Oh no, that's so bad for the Shock. Philly starting to take over in this round, and the switch to the Tracer, I absolutely love it here. Now, this Ana Lucio backline is going to have real trouble surviving.
Yeah, the beat comes out, and I have to say, Astro has also been very on point, not only taking down the Sombra, but timing beats super well here. The support line for the Fusion has been sublime thus far. And now the Shock, yet to get control in the round. Gonna go for here, but okay, they block directly in the Fury's grab. Violet down immediately, Ivy on the follow-through. And now, the Shock, one fight away from this going to a round 3.
Yeah, I mean, to Shock's credit, I think this is really all that they can do in this fight is die to grab. You have no answers to the ult. You're going up against Rhine. I mean, you're just going to die in the grab without a support ult. But get that fight out. Switch Striker to the Tracer. I think this is a great pick. Strong counter potential against the Doomfist. Could even have a little bit better odds of dodging Sombra's hack than a Reaper. But it's all on Choi. I think his grab has to be massive. That's the only initiation they have to work with.
Choi's a starter here, and Choi gonna open up here with the grab. See what fall through is there. Ivy down immediately, and the grab is good. The Shock at a 6v4 now. Able to take this a little bit slower as they head on to the point. Push the Fusion out. Fury, super, super low, gets chased down by Striker. And this is where the Shock can turn the tables a bit here, Jake.
Yeah, and they don't want to let any of these kills escape. Every stagger kill is worth so much right now. Wouldn't even be shocked to see Smurf make a dive there, but he does end up backing off. That would be a little bit over-aggressive. Doesn't want to waste his primal. Now Hisu needs to find an EMP, but this comp can be very difficult to EMP. The Zarya is going to be the only hero who's offering herself up to be EMP'd, but if Choi has good timing with that self-bubble, he's going to maintain his 400 HP and get 40 energy off the EMP, so it's not straightforward here for Hisu. He has to find the perfect moment, and Ons has a counter EMP as well, so he can't wait forever.
Yeah, and I think Ons is going to be looking to land the EMP first, just knowing that Hisu has in reserve. Here come the shock. Smurf opens up. On.
Hisu canceled.
It hits Hisu. Did it interrupt the EMP there, Jake? I think it did.
Yes, that's such a ridiculous swing. That's your goal swing on the Somber Mirror.
Sato?
Violet survives the shatter.
All right, the shock's still in it. Sato shatter, though, making this a little bit more in contest. Striker working around the outskirts. Pulse bomb ready to go. Charging forward. Doesn't want to take the in just yet. And Smurf is down. The fusion. They're going back onto the point. Fury has a graviton, and with Ons down, the Shocker's still getting pushed out, even with the EMP trade. We're going to round 3.
Yeah, Ivy and Fury just made the play in that fight. Despite the start going so well for the Shock, about as well as you could hope, Choi still got caught in the corner and trying to hide from Fury. Well, he just gets uppercutted out of his hiding spot, and of course, Fury doesn't miss those. So, nice cleanup by Ivy and Fury. I think if Choi had stayed alive in that fight, we could have seen a very different result. Choi was on 90 grav when he got cut down, which is pretty incredible how fast he farmed that from the previous fight. But still, Philly with some fight in them. 1-1 the scoreline. Lijiang Gardens to close it out, and we've got ourselves set up for the classic mirror of this most recent meta. There couldn't be a better way for this one to go, ZP.
And I think what you see from both these teams and why they're at the top is that these are both teams that win fights that should be impossible situations. I mean, when you EMP and not only hit a bunch of people, but take away the other Sombra's EMP, usually a fight win, but wasn't in that case, and that's just how resilient the Fusion are. And now Sato in on the Winston, diving in first, the shock. Going for the focus fire response. Sato gets hacked. Smurf getting very, very low here early on. Smurf about to fall. Ivy's still able to chase him down. And the Fusion now get to walk forward.
That was beautiful. Ivy going all in with the TP aggression. Smurf never really able to recover in that team fight. And, you know, we see so often on this map, the team that gets control of that first pillar ends up dominating space. There's really nowhere else to hide when you're coming across mid on the bridge. But Shock, they just want to go again. On's keeping up with Hisu, even charge on pretty much every ultimate here. And now it's Philly getting a slightly worse trade, but the Cole should turn it.
Alarm setting up the Cole off on the other side. Both Moira's dropping it. Anzo, EMP Hisu. EMP on the other end, it's so much bigger, Jake. It hits 6. And the Fusion, that's an EMP trade very much in their favor.
Yeah, you take those, and the trouble for Shock there, they probably thought they had the first EMP, they probably thought they could initiate, and that just baited them in to the 6-man hit from Hisu. So Hisu, tactical genius once again on the Sombra, and wow, really dominating so far on this map with the Philadelphia Fusion. Shock have no ins on this round, and this is the approach they kind of have to take, and God, that's also annoying. Hisu just picks up the Mega Pack in the meantime.
All right, the Shock looking for the way back in. Early beat out from Astro, slightly later from Moth. Smurf gets hacked mid-primal, but Striker able to focus down Sato. The Shock still very healthy. Smurf still mid-primal. Striker's built up the Death Blossom, and the Shock just continue to walk forward as Smurf and Striker again leading the charge.
Yeah, just a slightly better beat from Moth, but I think that makes a world of difference there. Sato getting cut down, and he is coming back to the point. This is very stallable, but with Shock being 6 players strong, you're just going to get cleaned up so fast trying to recontest point. And you know, to Shock's credit, they kept calm in that situation. They have a lot of ultimates to work with here, so the retake is far from certain. Really is going to come down to execution. So far, Hisu getting slightly better EMPs overall, but it has been back and forth, ZP.
I mean, especially when the Fusion have such a nice opening, and now they're going for it again. EMP, bomb up and over. Smurf out of the fight immediately. Striker, though, not a response, ups Death Blossom. And Striker's still the X-Pac right now for the Shock. Super low HP, gets healed right back up. And Striker and Smurf, so long as they're in the fight, the Shock still have the opportunity, even as Sato's primal fades. Striker those down, and that's so big for the Fusion. A huge advantage now in the neutral game, and they can just take control of the point.
Hisu, hack after hack. First one was onto Striker, got a kill. Second one on the Diva, so he can't recontest. Now a quick beat from Moth, just gambling with this one, going all in are the SF Shock. Smurf has another primal, so he's back into the fray, and oh, this is a beatdown. He's getting so much done here, but he is just burned down in the end.
Yeah, he got enough damage out of it and enough disruption, but brothers, the Fusion didn't blink. They just threw every bit into Smurf. They take him down, and now Hisu, the EMP, it's good to go. Cole or not. Self-destructed from the Fusion, making more space. Now note, the Shock have been in control all this time. It's been really good delay from the Shock, but it does seem inevitable that the Fusion are going to get control.
Yeah, they're certainly swinging this round back, but it is going to be pretty even. Striker with the final delay with his Wraith form. I love this from the Shock. They're getting absolutely every ounce of value they can out of this fight. but it will ultimately be a reset, and Hisu managed to hold on to his EMP. Honey Astro holding on to the beat. Philly have every tool they need. This is really their round to lose at this point. Unless the Shock can come up with some sort of ridiculous play, I think we will see Philly coming out 1-0 in this series, but it's all on Hisu and Ons.
Yeah, I mean, if Ons can land a bigger EMP, it's what the Shock need here, especially while at disadvantage Ultimate Bank. Hisu, though, just walking forward, getting ready to drop the EMP.
Cancelled.
Hits 4 on the Shock, and Sato there in the fall through. Bob, a quick boop off to the side. The Shock's still in this. They're only down 1, Jake. But now Astro dropping the beat. The Fusion look to finish us off here, and now Joy can't get away. And the Fusion at a huge advantage here so far, but the Shock still lingering on the outskirts. They drop a beat of their own. Now it's time to turn the tempo. Striker in. Beat still on him, and the Fusion are getting pushed back.
Striker's so low. He needs to survive. He's got this Death Blossom. If Fury isn't ready, it's going to be so big. Fury blocking it perfectly as well as he can, but there's just too much resources. Striker, he's still alive. The later support ults kept him online on this Reaper, and somehow, some way, Shock, they just stayed alive until Moth and Violet had the support ults, and that was all the turn they needed on top of the ridiculous boot by Moth onto an ulting Ivy Reaper. That's huge.
This match has had it all so far, and it's just map 1. It's taking the 99-99 round 3. Overwatch does not get better than this. And I'll see if the Fusion have what it takes to retake the point. The Shock in control, 92-99. Sato jumping in over the top to kick things up, but he's burned down! The focus fire is insane! And the Shock just about there.
Yeah, it's self-destruct from Fury. He's desperation mode, but there's nobody who can touch. No, Funny Astro makes it to point, keeping things alive, but he is hacked, he is cut down. And Shock, they're regrouping at the back of the point. Textbook teamwork and the coalescence. It's too much, ZP. Shock, they're gonna get this first map.
Yeah, the EMP comes out a little bit late. The last gasp here coming for the Fusion, and the Shock. This round did not start well for them, Jake, but they got back in it. They hold here when it matters, and it's gonna be map 1. Heading the way of the defending champions.
Wow, just a knockdown drag out on our first match, first map of the series. Woo! It doesn't get better than that, ZP. I think we got a really good series in store.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, this entire matchup has been crazy, where it's been almost one impossible play after another. Great EMPs, great support ult usage, fantastic tank initiations, great focus fire. It's rare that you look at a match and go, wow, everything looks good, but that is truly the case right now.
Yeah, and what's so exciting about this Sombra matchup that we hyped up in the pregame is that both of these players are, no one is backing down right now. The way you would back down on Sombra is you would let the enemy Sombra get her EMP off, play in a safe spot, and then you're going to come in just to counter EMP from a backline. But both Sombras are playing to counter each other. They're playing to cancel each other's EMP, which means they're taking the risk of losing their own. And that just shows an incredible amount of confidence from both teams.
Well, it's going to be the Fusion's map choice next. The series has been going to the wire thus far. I expect it to stay just the same. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Cheez-It Grooves. Deep flavor, deep crunch. It's a mind crunch.
It's Puckett in the Spawn Room here with your reminder to get your exclusive inside look into the 2020 Overwatch League playoffs like never before. It's all available thanks to our friends at Cheez-Its Grooves and Pringles Wavy. Simply tweet at Overwatch League using one of these Crunch Time Cam hashtags to get instant, real-time photos of the two teams in action tweeted right back at you. And remember, keep tweeting throughout the match to get even more behind-the-scenes pics. We've got more fun and games from the Spawn Room coming up. It's the Overwatch League 2020 playoffs.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile. And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Map 1 going the distance, 99-99, 3 rounds. What more could you ask for in a winner's bracket final, Jake? Both these teams proving why they're here today.
Yeah, there's so much at stake here, and to see both teams going at it absolutely full throttle, nobody backing down, both teams clearly playing strategies that they've well practiced. It's an incredible match so far. I think you can't predict the way the series is going to shake out map to map. Fight to fight. I mean, moment to moment, really, anything could happen. There was a moment there where I thought it was Philly going to absolutely run away with it, and then Moth somehow boops the ulting Reaper off the map, and they stay alive for the last crucial seconds, to get that sound barrier and coalescence online, come back in the fight. Incredible stuff on Lijiang Tower. Personal favorite map, always seems to deliver at this top level. And as we go into Hollywood, I'm really interested to see if there's any sort of strategic changes from these teams. Will this be a map that sees a resurgence of, heroes like Widow, like Ashe, a little bit of a slower style? Very possible. Second point high ground, very hard to break, even with a high mobility dive team. So we could see those backline hits can come out.
Well, you have to think that there's a reason why Fusion are bringing the shock here, right? Because this is where you get into the entire idea of playoff chess, where you lose a map, you get to go to your map of choice, where you take a look at everything and think, okay, I think that for whatever reason, we have an edge on this map. It's either something that the Fusion think that they're very strong on, or something that they think that the Shock are very weak on. One of the two things, maybe a combination of the two. And with how well prepped and how just deep the Fusion have been in strategy this year, I mean, I would definitely give the edge to Fusion going into this map simply because it is their choice.
Yeah, definitely. I think you better be picking maps with that sort of deep strategy in mind, and for teams like Philly and Shock just at that very top echelon, you better believe that they're prepared in that way. Like, the default strategies are second nature to these teams when it comes down to being crazy, being inventive, changing things up. Well, that's where you get into map picks. That's where you get into being able to force your style. And for Philly Fusion, though, they just still prefer the Reaper Sombra here. I mean, now that I look at it, this comp in particular, when you're not playing the Tracer, a little bit less hindered by the high ground issue, right? Because Sombra and Reaper, Sombra struggles a bit to get high ground, but Reaper obviously has no issue just teleporting up there. Winston D.Va following in. Moira might struggle to get heals up there, but not the end of the world. So I think first and third points still are great for this style and still can force brawls in close range where Reaper and Sombra want to be.
For a second, I was getting very excited over the prospect of seeing a Ball Zarya composition come out from the Shocks, but that's why you don't get excited by the attackers. They always break your heart. Instead, it's going to be Winston D.Va once more here for the Shock, and see which team can play this comp better.
Yeah, it does come down so much to the hacks. I think Hisu was a little bit more on point with those classic right-click hacks on Lijiang Tower. Nice job by Philly to back off, not really give Smurf the ultimate charge he's looking for with that jumping play, but at least Shock, they have high ground control, so it's going to be on them to make the next move.
This is a really good opening for the Shock. They still get the high ground. Now Smurf, it's taking slow. Okay, a little bit too slow. Take it down immediately by Ivy. The focus fire onto main tanks this series continues to be wild, and that's a quick and easy way to win a team fight.
Yeah, main tank is a real struggle right now, playing up against Reaper and Sombra at the same time. And I mean, wow, look at these Sombras, both incredibly fast with their EMP building. Just really, really strong fundamentals from these players. This is super surprising in the way these fights have been going, that they almost both have EMP online. Oh wow, EMP's gonna be everything.
On's a little bit quicker, but now Cole out from Alarm, and the EP comes out from On's first. Hitting 3 on the Fusion. But now Hisu, his counter EMP hits 4. Motho there with the beat in response. Both Lucio's on point. Both teams still at 6, but Smurf a little bit lower. The focus fire a bit better for the Fusion here so far. Fury getting low, but it's built up the self-destruct. Choi still a bit away. And now self-destruct gonna be heading out. Sato gets hacked. Can't problem here, but won't need to. The self-destruct takes down 2.
Yeah, playing in the Cubby paid off big time. Ivy there getting supported by his defense matrix from Fury, and just rolls over Striker, who of course can do nothing in the grips of D.Va's defense matrix. Smurf finishing up his Primal. Wow, that's a really huge hold for Philly, because normally you don't get too much value off the self-destruct in this meta, but because Philly played it so patiently and waited out so many cooldowns from the Shock just had no answers when the bomb came out. So winning a team fight like that is probably about as good as you can hope for, as now both teams, again, EMP's back online. These Sombras are so insane.
This is insane. The build is ridiculous. The Shock, though, a little bit of an extra advantage here. On should be able to get out first. Striker opening up the Death Blossom, but no, taken out by Ivy's Blossom in turn. And Ons drops the EMP in response, but it only hits 2. It's a bit forced. The bomb somehow kills Ivy? What in the world?
It wasn't up, his Wraith form wasn't up online. Super close, but not good enough. And I think he could have hidden from that in the corner, ZP, so that might be a blunder that cost him first point, as Shock looking in great position right now. Ivy going to be back to the fight very late, so Striker has free reign to just push across the map.
Okay, Sato now using Primal, really good self-control, waits for the EMP. EMP comes out, Striker's immediately deleted. The self-control for the ult usage for the Fusion, really, really good. They drop beat for beat. And the Shock now down in numbers on the point as the Fusion look to re-solidify. They take down Smurf and Jake. They've burned the clock. Only 1 minute left for the Shock.
Yeah, losing Striker is so painful in that situation, because he's so much of your damage when that EMP comes out. And, well, at least Ons held on to his own EMP, and Funny Astro did commit the beat here. So this is the moment where Philly, they really don't have a proper answer to EMP. Should be a good take, but it is reliant on Ons finding that good EMP, right? If Philly can just be evasive, be elusive, and get only, you know, maybe 1 or 2 members EMP, they can survive that with a Coalescence. I think this EMP really needs to find the DPS most critically, who can still die while being cold.
You know, I think he's just going to be looking for hack. Onzo drops the EMP early, doesn't want to wait, hits 3. Funny Astro, though, might be able to get away. Everyone for the Fusion still alive. They're able to disengage off the EMP. Now they're ready to go. The problem is Sato taken down. He was so close to Primal. Fury's bomb ends up being the equalizer. Gets Moth in the back. Ivy, Death Blossom in the cafe, finds Violet. The Shock, they're looking low. They want the heals and a 4-man EMP from Hisu right over the top.
The Shock just getting absolutely battered on Philadelphia Fusion's map pick. It will be a full hold. Not a perfect one, but certainly good enough. You will absolutely take this any day of the week. With only first point to cap, you can play the win conditions so much more decisively and carefully. But I get the sense that this map isn't over yet, ZP. I think this is a map where full holding might be actually reasonably doable in this meta. The way Philly played that cafe position, even when they've lost all control of the map, they're still fighting strong, using the cafe as their position of last resort. That worked incredibly well for them. So I wonder, what will they do to actually break this setup, which is most likely going to continue to be a mirror match.
I'm just watching him wonder right now, Jake. The level of play we're seeing right now is absolutely insane out of both of these teams. I would just bring it back to the beginning fight, Jake, where normally most teams in the league, that's ending off the EMP. Yet somehow you end up both teams trading out EMPs, both teams trading out perfectly timed beats, and the fight continues to go on. It just absolutely mind-blowing. But you know what? There's a lot of things that are mind-blowing right now, Jake. And that's why we have to ask, are there any crunchers? Pringles, Wavy, and Cheez-It Grooves are giving you behind-the-scenes photos during today's matches. Just tweet at Overwatch League and hashtag CrunchTimeCamSF or hashtag CrunchTimeCamPHI to receive a photo of your team in real time.
Yeah, crunchers, stay repping for your teams. Shock, they're going to need all the support they can get right now, because this has got to be a perfect play from them. You can give up maybe a couple players, maybe soft reset and come back into the fight, but that's about it in terms of mistakes available. And you're going up against the Philadelphia Fusion. Players like Hisu and Ivy, they don't wait for mistakes, they force them. So it's going to be a real challenge. I think eyes on Striker and Ons need to stay alive, keep farming those ultimates, keep the pressure pumping. Losing those players is going to be deadly.
Well, Fusion, they don't want to wait around. They want to put this map out now. But okay, Sato just runs into the same fate that Smurf did. Back around to go. Focus fire on the Winston. It's a big thing.
Yeah, it's jumping into the meat grinder that is Striker at close range. Man, does not miss. So far, a really rough start for the Philadelphia Fusion, but doesn't end up costing them much. A little less than a minute off the time bank, and EMP charge still very even. So as long as Ons doesn't get ahead of that, really aren't going to be too upset.
Well, they go again. This time the Fusion are going to successfully get onto the high ground, force the Shock back. That's just one step out of many. And look at the Sombras again, Jake. Both super close to EMP. Hisu ever so slightly ahead. Alarm Open up with goal, both pulls out here, both teams fighting in the neutral. Sato getting a lot lower, and the Fusion might have to back up a little bit.
Yeah, Sato getting forced out like that, going to create a big opening for the Shock, but they're not electing to force the issue. They want to play defensive, force Philly to come to them, expending cooldowns across the point so that they can use their cooldowns to just win the fight. Sato, though, he's been the target of so much pressure, jumping into the EMP, but Mach, he's hiding, perfect counter.
Yeah, it drops the EMP, or Pete right in time. Sato, though, stays alive enough to Primal. Oh, Sato is so close to death's door. And now the Fusion. Sato's still alive. He's still creating chaos. Moth's out of the fight. And the Fusion are real close to taking this point.
This is trouble, but Violet has a quick pull. It's up early. Ivy just popping the Death Blossom, trying to just stay alive in the corner, though. And going up against Striker, the 1v1 to decide the map. It will go the way of the Philadelphia Fusion, and looks like just clean up here. Tanks for the Shock, so battered and bruised inside the hut. I don't think you can hide there forever, though. The point will be capped, and Philly even up the series with a decisive map pick.
Ooh, that was a quick map, but that was still an absolutely insane map in terms of the level of coordination and play we saw from both teams. And Fusion, a cut above, and you see why was their map choice.
Yeah, they look so strong on first point, clearly with a ton of setups. The way they played it looked really, really well practiced. You know, even when they were backs up against the wall, it still looked like they had a way back into the fight. They had a game plan of how to retake. But to be fair, though, for the Shock side, right? Imagine if Sato dies there and doesn't get his primal off. I think we see Philly losing that fight. And I mean, Sato's living on like 50 HP or something. You can't really tell at that level. But it's so, I mean, it's a breath of air at the highest level, right? That'll do 50 damage to you. So, wow, that's an incredibly close match, despite it being, you know, a full hold on A. I think now time for Shock to respond with their map pick. But you can only hope that it would be as dominant, though. I think from Philly, like, you take that every day of the week.
Yeah, if you're a Fusion, you're super happy. I mean, there's no greater display of dominance in Overwatch than just getting a first point hold, ending the map quickly, and, you know, who knows what would have happened on point B or point C, but never had the go there in the end. And yeah, it's been crazy. But you know what? Before we head to our halftime show to break everything down, just a reminder, All-Stars is around the corner. And you know what that means? A new chance to acquire some crazy good skins right along the way. We can't show them to you here today, but rest assured, they are awesome. But now, with that out of the way, it's time for our Watchpoint halftime show.
Ooh. Oh my. Wait.
Ooh. Oh my. What? Oh.
Whoa, wait, these are sick.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh my god, that is actually so sick. No, that's actually the craziest skin I've ever seen.
I think these might be the best All-Star skins, actually.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Welcome back to the Spawn Room. It's your Trivia Master, Chris Puckett, with another challenge for you. This time, I want you to name that map as fast as you can. It's an arch with a leaf? Ah, yes, Bavarian architecture. The answer, it's Eichenwald. Shout out to everyone who got this one right away and spelled it correctly. I'm impressed. I'll be back with more games from the Spawn Room. For now, though, let's let the action tick up another level as we go into the games here from the Overwatch League 2020 playoffs.
Hello and welcome to our game break presented by Pringles Wavy. Zoe here, joined by Costa and Reinforce. And this is a game, all right? This is exactly going like I wanted it to. It is an evenly matched game, so let's dissect the action heading over to Lijiang Tower. Reinforce, did you like the comms, or were you surprised to see what either of the teams are pulling out of their sleeves?
I mean, I guess I have to say that I was actually slightly surprised at the fact that San Francisco decided to play a lot of this Sombra Reaper composition. Now, we know that Sombra Reaper has been favored by most of the teams in the North American bracket so far, but still for the shock to look at Philadelphia Fusion and say, yeah, they're really good at Sombra Reaper, he's just been amazing on the Sombra, but we're actually going to mirror them and we're going to play Sombra Reaper ourselves. I think that's quite brave here from the San Francisco shock. Still, going into Lijiang Tower though, we saw the Philadelphia Fusion obviously playing a lot more Reinhardt. Sado, we know that he's the superior Reinhardt in that head-to-head against Sado, the main tank of the shock, right? So that gave Philadelphia Fusion more room to be comfortable in their current composition. I think we saw that on Night Market specifically when Sado was able to play that Reinhardt and you saw Ivy on the Mei. But the San Francisco shock, they're playing more of this Winston composition with the Sombra and Reaper. It looked good at times. They struggled a little bit on Control Center when they went up against the Philadelphia Fusion's composition, but later on they swapped to the Sombra Reaper. But then it came into Gardens and it was just back and forth. Like, it was just EMP cancellation after EMP cancellation. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life, just analyzing Overwatch. Like, I've pretty much watched every professional game of Overwatch since like 2016, and I've never seen anything like it. It was just EMP cancellation after EMP cancellation.
For our crunch time, because this is where we want to discuss that EMP matchup we saw from both of those teams. Let's head on to the second map, Hollywood.
Yeah.
Not really shocks Matt at all.
Yeah,
Costa.
well, that sort of goes back to what Johnny said, where he was like, Shock's just going to mirror it. And as much as that seems like a good idea, you look at this Hollywood matchup and it seems ill-advised almost at this point. This meta and what we're seeing is probably the closest thing to GOATs that we've seen in a very long time. There isn't a lot of different, well, at least how these two teams are playing it. There isn't a lot of difference in what is happening or how they're moving around the map and stuff like that. Very brawl style, and it's coming down to ultimate and ability usage that is really being the difference maker. And you're seeing the Philadelphia Fusion are just doing it a little bit better, and that's sort of what made them edge out. The Shock had advantage in so many different fights, especially on their offense, but Philadelphia Fusion have such a good push and pull of how they're using these abilities and how they're re-engaging that they just could never get that first point. So really impressive stuff from the Fusion. I'm interested to see how the Shock is going to adapt moving into the second half.
Reinforce, are you at all surprised to see both teams kind of adapting to a same style in this current meta? Did you expect one or the other to, maybe take a different approach with that particular comp?
I mean, I could have seen the San Francisco Shock came out and play more like Tracer and Ashe compositions, because that is their comfort zone. That is when Ans is able to play the Ashe and Striker can play that Tracer. But I think them playing the Sombra Reaper here against the Philadelphia Fusion really just tells you how good this Sombra Reaper composition is. So I think we just have to accept, the fate that lies before us in the fact that Sombra Reaper is a fantastic composition, and we're probably not going to see either of these teams deviate from it much in this series.
Yeah, and I mean, you compared it to GOATs earlier, Costa, and this is it, right?
Yeah.
Like, GOATs is a fantastic meta if it's played on the highest of levels, because then it's really those tiny little things. It's a very intricate kind of strategic approach from those teams, which really makes a difference. And that's why in our crunch time presented by Pringles Wavy, we're going to take a closer look at the Zombras going toe-to-toe, head-to-head on their EMPs, just cancelling each other out left and right. It was insanity.
Ridiculous.
It really was. I mean, it was absolutely insane. Like I said, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. And this is pretty similar to the GOAT's composition that you said, because it comes down to the very small abilities and the very minor dynamic changes within these compositions. So for example, Winston leaps, Sombra EMPs, sound barriers, you have to extract the maximum amount of value. So it really comes down to this Sombra head-to-head in my opinion, because here you have the EMP, probably the most important ability out of all the abilities in this matchup so far. And when you get these ultimate cancellations. It's a major shift in how you approach some of these team fights and how you're actually going to game plan around them. So you can't really take these for granted, of course. They're pretty random in that regard, but still being able to cancel the other Sombra's EMP, that's just a massive win for you going into some of these fights. And I think that was one of the reasons why you saw San Francisco Shock being able to win Lijiang Tower, being able to shut down Hisu with his own EMPs and minimizing the value that Fusion could get with that ultimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just amazing to see both of those Sombras really being so evenly matched. Costa, did you expect Answer or Hisu to really have the upper hand here?
I expect Hisu to have the upper hand. He's been phenomenal with it all season, and he really looks like he's in his element in these playoffs. Something that I'm really curious about with these two Sombra plays is if they're trying to predict and prepare for these other Sombras and they're intentionally trying to cancel it, because you just have to go first by a couple of milliseconds, right? And that's very hard to do, and you need to be very confident in your ability. As you can see here in the stat card, I think Hisu's getting the better of him right now. So we're going to need to see Arn step up on this Sombra. Otherwise, this could be very rough for the San Francisco Shock to pull it back.
And I mean, you just mentioned the confidence, and that's something neither of those teams and definitely neither of those Sombras are lacking. So let's see who will be edging ahead. For now, we're heading into a very short break, and then afterwards, we are back with the next match in the series, which is going to be Volskaya. And for all the action, we send it back over to Jake and CP.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles Wavy. Big crunch, big flavor.
What's up, everybody? It's Puckett in the Spawn Room, and it's time to tell you about a new Instagram AR game you should be playing right now. It's called Race to the Future, and it features our very own Sideshow as he tries to avoid obstacles while riding a hoverboard. Check out the game on the Overwatch League Instagram page, and also celebrate the Overwatch League playoffs by heading to the Download Center on OverwatchLeague.com, where you can download your favorite team-themed wallpapers, backgrounds, banners, and icons. There's no better time to celebrate the league than right now. We got more of the Overwatch League 2020 playoffs coming up.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by HyperX. Unleash your style, unleash your fury. With HyperX Fury Memory. And by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
That shatter is good. Super gets 3, Fury alarm, maybe even 4 in fact.
现在这个情况对他们来说有点危险。文斯顿又是暴露配合进场之后，在这个位置，天哪，全部人都被打下去了。
Brian get aggressive on them, and I mean Striker with a double kill.
要自己2个人的性命，雪球可能要滚动起来了，各位。再配一个引力乱流，后方部队也不给逃脱白了。
It's not every time that a matchup lives up to the hype, but today is definitely one of those times. 1-1 between the Shock and the Fusion. Both teams playing out of their minds, looking to secure that Grand Finals weekend spot. And Jake, it's been great.
Yeah, the battle rages on here between San Francisco and Philadelphia, and I really think, you know, that what we saw there was maybe some map pick difference with Philly just being a little bit more comfortable on Hollywood first. But, you know, to be fair, it was also Philly's map pick going to Lijiang Tower being the 1 seed. So the fact that Shock is at this point in the series is 1-1 is they're happy with that, because if it just keeps going map pick to map pick, right, Shock are going to win in the end. So it does come down a lot, I think, to that early start in the series. At this point, Philly's the team that needs to turn the momentum and beat Shock on a map pick of, you know, Shock's own decision, right? And that's how you get back in the series. That's how you get ahead. So as we look forward to Volskaya Industries, that could very well be the place to do it. As much as you obviously are going to pick maps for your comfort zone, it seems like this series is going to be mostly a mirror match between the Reaper Sombra Brawl, which, you know, yes, map picks matter, your comfortability matters, but at the same time, it also doesn't. Like, if you're not going to change the strategy, and if you're pretty much going to continue running that mirror match, execution is going to be the definitive factor here. And with the way both these Sombras and Reapers are playing, they're both going very aggressive, very all-in, confidence in their teammates to protect them, you know, and just taking risks. And that's the right style, but it's also a chaotic one. It's one that's hard to predict who's going to come out on top of.
Well, the interesting thing, too, is like how close the margin of victory has been, where it's easy to look back and you quickly glance over the box score and you go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. It was a first point hold coming out from the Fusion. But then you look back at how all that happened and how they were able to still play there, especially on the attack, where Sato just lives within an inch of his life, so close to falling before getting the primal that would end up sealing the fight. You know, every one of these team fights is a great thing to go back and review, because it's been so incredibly close. Just one click of the mouse deciding it between the two teams, and I mean, it's what top-level Overwatch is all about.
Yeah, it's great to see the performance from this region. Excited to see that Grand Finals weekend, of course. Which one of these teams can punch their ticket there right now, can, you know, relax a little bit longer, start prepping for Grand Finals performance, being the NA1 seed. I mean, there's a lot at stake in this match, and the pressure is on to the highest level. But I think these are the type of players who kind of just let go of that pressure, who can just play at 100% regardless of that pressure. As we see the mirror match coming out once again, my eyes once again come back to On Striker, Ivy, and Hisu. I think this Reaper matchup is so critical. Killing the enemy Reaper is usually a death blow if your Reaper continues to fight unscathed.
And the Shock, I don't think they're going to be waiting too long here in the setup. Both teams, it's been quick engagements from both, very decisive. And now the Shock already up to the high ground. The Fusion just hanging back in the Mega Pack room and making the Shock have to do the first move.
Yeah, Shock don't want to fight in there, though, on the hacked Mega. That's going to be really risky, and Philly just take a nice little side swap there, retaking the high ground as soon as Shock leave it. Trades close for both teams, but Shock winning a bit of control on the point here, and Philly, they're struggling to get healed up.
They're getting low. That's the key part, is that they had to take cover for a while. The Shock have already gotten 2 ticks on the point, and now they report on zone. It's so much quicker. It hits 5! And the follow-through immediately there. And the Fusion, they just got into a bad spot in the neutral game, Jake, and they could never recover.
Yeah, that cover, it just wasn't good enough because Ons was still farming that whole time. Yes, you're hiding from Striker on the Reaper and a bit of poke maybe from the Diva, but Ons, he's still charging that EMP and coming up first just blocks out the team fight. Now, it should be Philly's turn to just clap back with Cole and EMP, but you really don't want to overcommit ultimates. They want to win with just Cole here, and it looks like they are going to be able to do it, so great execution from Philly. I think they're right back into this map, just off winning without using the EMP in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, the key here is that you really leverage a part that point B is a lot harder to take. You slow things down. You've saved the EMP for another team fight. Yeah, it's not great that they lost point A that quickly, but this is recoverable for the Fusion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're already recovered it. They're already in a place where it is just about treating ults even. They have the advantage. Hisu thinking about EMPing here, but he's got to make sure he catches Moth. If he misses that target, the beat's coming down. But Moth, non-position just this once. And a quick cut down here. Should be Philly Fusion cleaning this one up.
Yeah, and as always, EMP comes down, who's going to be the first target? Smurf gets taken down immediately, and it's just Ivy chopping people up on the cleanup. And the Fusion now are in a really good spot where, sure, they used EMP there, but the power of EMP, Jake, it just enables the rest of your economy. They're looking very good.
Yeah, the fact that they have almost the other 5 ults is pretty critical, but Shock are almost coming into this with a full bank. Ons needs to farm just a little bit more. Challenge for Philly is going to be, as we see a little bit of cleanup here from Ivy, the challenge for Philly in this next fight, though, is can you survive the beat aggression with no EMP? I think Shock have an opening, you just beat in, head for the backlines.
Well, Fusion, they look to take the initiative. I think they know they're a little bit outgunned. They open up with the Primal. Sato gets hacked midway through. The Shock hanging on to their EMP from the Ration ultimates. They drop the beat. Smurf takes down Fury. Now the Fusion running out of time to respond. These two out of the fight. 4 people left remaining. Sato just deleted. And Astro drops the beat far too late, Jake. He wanted to save it for later, but now there may be no later.
He's got no choice, right? He's the last one alive. He only just built up the ultimate, so not able to find it in that good situation, especially with all the zoning coming out from Shock. It's great usage by Smurf and Choi on their ultimates, not letting you get any value out of beat on the Philadelphia Fusion. So now it's delay mode, basically giving up that the capture will come through here for the Shock. And very respectable time here. 3:30 in the bank to work with going into the OT rounds, if that's even necessary. So Shock, they're happy with that other map pick.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's a very, very good time, especially against a team like the Fusion where, you know, you think about what went into that. The Shock had the dominate point A, and it didn't take them too many cracks at point B. I mean, I think they had about 5.5 minutes left for point B, so only about a 2-minute churn for point B. And you look at this for the Fusion, I think it puts a lot of time pressure on them where, you know, if they can get maybe a 2-minute time bank, then it's like pretty close to even. But if the Fusion end up in a situation where they end up capping, you know, with only about 20 seconds left, if that, it's going to be very difficult. Or, you know, the worst case scenario would be they cap in overtime, then have to defend first for 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think an overtime finish is almost certainly going to be a win for Shock. The real question in my mind is those OT rounds, because in my view, Volskaya is a map where even if you only have 1 minute to work with on attack, sometimes you can just do that and snowball it into second, maybe get a take on second, maybe cap second if you manage to win first, very clean, minimal ult commitment. The most interesting story, though, here is obviously this huge comp swap from Shock. They've had success on this style before with Ons in the past. If he dies on this Ashe, he'll switch over to a Sombra and slowly convert the team into the dive style. But last time, I think it was mostly Violet and Moth living forever and just putting out a ton of work on this defense with this boosted Ashe comp. Philly sticking with what's worked. We'll see if they've got the answers to the boosted Ashe. I think you can play well around this, but there's always the opening for Ons to just go, you know, even further beyond and just pop off, somehow crushing, you know, your 200 HP characters with those boosted headshots.
I think we already have a swap in response where they're going to put Ivy off over to the Tracer. You don't really want to be running Reaper against this. I think it's going to be too easy for Ashe to shut down. Now we'll see how much pressure Fusion can apply to Ons to shut them down.
Yeah, it's all about Shock keeping map control. A lot of resources right now dedicated to Ons, making him very hard to dive. Hisu, lucky he hasn't been scouted at this point. Oh, Choi, so close. Does check him out of invis. That's such a big swing. Basically, I mean, you basically can't dive now for Philly. That's really painful considering he's also already lost a minute off the clock. You need to just wait for Hisu to get reset. And that type of play, it seems small, but it really buys a lot of time for the defenders.
I just wonder about the lore of just the paranoid diva just shooting the walls looking for Sombra. Just, you know what? It works though. Get the Sombra out. Fusion get pummeled a bit on the entry here. Sato gets so low along with Fury that the Fusion can't immediately go back over. Sato decides, all right, I'm going for it anyways. Just gets chunked down by On super early. And On so far well protected, laying in the damage, and this has been a real barrier so far to the Fusion.
Yeah, very clean rotation there by the Shock. Perfect timing to back off the high ground. And Sato, he gets a great jump there, despite hiding for so long. He gets the great jump he's looking for, but the follow-up just doesn't come through because he rotated so preemptively so early that the pocket from Moth was just 100% on Violet. No need to protect his Ashe because they made sure that only one of those backliners is in danger at any given time. So great rotations from Shock, and now they have the ultimates to work with. This is where, for Philly, it looks really dire.
Well, one way that the Fusion could open things up, the Pulse Bomb from Ivy, it's good to go. Rob, though, going to be coming out early here from Onto Astro. Got
Striker.
Caught. Striker just looped around the back. Pulse Bomb Eden. It's big from Fury. The problem is they're still down one, down to Lucio this early. You know, it makes things tough, and it also makes them incredibly reliant on staying around Alarm while they wait for Astro to get back to the fight.
Yeah, and Striker with the Harmony Orb advantage is pretty terrifying, right? You think Striker already one of the best tracers in the league. Ivy, a strong opponent, but he's going up against a Harmony Orb. It makes your life really difficult. It's the best way to heal Tracer pretty much in the game besides a break pack. So great use of that ability. Striker, look at him just dominating the map, chasing after Ivy. Yeah, come 1v1 me, he says. And Ivy, I mean, he can't do anything against that. He just has to reset. More map control.
How much of a 1v1? It's a little bit rigged. But now the dive comes in. Violet gets taken down immediately.
There we go.
Transcendence, it's such a big early pickoff. Both supports down. And the Fusion have cracked the code here for point A. But man, if Violet was able to transcend a moment later, that could have been a very different fight.
Yeah, so painful to die at that point, you know, not getting off the trance because it's actually Moth attempting to res that gets him stuck by the Pulse Bomb. So Shock, little slip up there. It's going to cost them point A, and this is actually where that little slip-up is so costly. This is why this comp is something that only the very best teams even consider to play, because the risks are large, right? If you end up losing that first point in an awkward way, as we just saw, you can get steamrolled. Violet, he has to trance this EMP perfectly. But the problem is, will Hisu even EMP? If Fusion just beat in, it's going to be very hard for Violet to survive without committing trance.
Yeah, I think Violet might get forced to transcend before the EMP. Certainly is going to be waiting for it. The Fusion, though, no matter what, it's going to be a slower time than the Shock. Point A is assured that here thus far. 3.5 minutes left to go. Ivy, though, down immediately right as the Fusion beat on top of it. So the Fusion trying to take point B in a 5-on-6 right now. They're still holding on to the EMP. They're forcing the Shock back. Smurf and Choi getting very, very low.
Bob's
the rest
so
of the thought
good.
were going to be there. They're just able to back away.
Bob is just a god-tier ultimate in this situation. It's exactly what you needed. A big body to hold point and just put out some good damage. And Choi charging forward with more pressure. Dodges the EMP as well, harassing the backline. Choi's getting so much done right now, forcing absolutely everyone to be looking at him. They're not capturing the point, and the Shock, their backline is stabilizing here. So even though some progress for Philly, that was their EMP fight. That was their beat fight. That was everything. And for Ons to get that opening headshot onto Ivy, it just meant that all of those dives, all those ultimates were so much less threatening losing that Tracer.
Yeah, I mean, the one way to equalize any sort of ultimate disadvantage, get an early pickoff. Then it doesn't really matter what the other team has in reserve. It's far more winnable. And the Fusion, with only 2.5 minutes left to go, they're in a tough spot now, Jake.
Yeah, ultimate's online. You don't have a trance, though, so it might be hard, even with Moth's Valkyrie, to keep Violet alive. It's going to be basically critical in this team fight. You need to keep this Zen alive as long as possible, make the enemy pay dearly, especially with Sato's Primal. I don't think you're getting through that Primal without the Discord Orb, but already Sato drops so low, he can't even initiate. That's super painful.
Yeah, he has the Primal really early into the fight because of the early Discord Orb pressure. Ivy drops Pulse Bomb, doesn't connect. The Fusion, their tank line at half. The Shock in the back line. Striker, though, taken down. Alarm able to finish him off. 6-on-5 now for the Fusion as they head on in. Like their best on two. They're going to have Choi, though, drops a self-destruct over the top. As Smurf bops people around, and Ons finds Funny Astro. And the Shock have successfully slowed it down, Jake.
Yeah, Philly, they're just trying to stay alive against Smurf's Primal, but I mean, look at Ons. He's just standing and delivering on the backline high ground. This is the power of this Ashe Zen comp. When they are enabled to make these plays and just pump out damage from a backline high ground, I mean, this comp is just disgusting, the amount of raw pressure you put out. Top-tier Zen players, top-tier Ashe players, and you know, the boost to really escalate that. This is why this comp has historically been so strong in Overwatch. You just are never really ready for quite how fast these heroes can burst you. Yep.
Oh, Alarm! What a pickoff! That actually might have just sealed the map because now they have to wait for Alarm, Jake, And the odds of the Fusion, after waiting for Alarm, actually finishing this out with any time left remaining, it's very low.
Yeah, and you've got the perfect stall ultimates. You've got Bob, you've got Trance, and you know Striker has a pulse bomb too. I would say Philly's comp is like probably the hardest comp, the pulse bomb, that you can play in Overwatch. But Striker, this guy managed to get it done in tougher scenarios than this. He's setting up for a big EMP. If he could catch Violet unawares, kill Violet off before the Trance comes out, that could be the swing they need to get this cap with a little bit of time in the bank.
Well, the Fusion, they're pretty much playing for the draw now, barring a miracle. We'll see if they can set it in motion. Hisu, ready to the EMP, not in the best spot for it, gets forced way back, and now it's definitely going to overtime, Jake.
Yeah. Early, Hisu's not there to follow up with an EMP. Violet has the Trance. The idea is force all the ultimates coming with this EMP as a finisher here.
Bomb over the top is going to catch anyone. It was close, but not quite enough. The Fusion, though, still at a full 6 shot. Striker pretty low on the outskirts. Pulse bomb, though. It's set up. Sato super low. He doesn't have Primal. He's about to fall. Taken down by Violet. And the Fusion, it's in overtime no matter what, so it's not great.
Moth does not get his Valk off.
Ivy gets a bomb, but Choi, the equalizer. The Shocker still hanging on.
Yeah, now Moth has the Valk online. This one's over. Shock are going to go up 2-1 in the series, winning their map pick in pretty dominant fashion, I would say. And to be fair, they're the first team to change it up. That's a powerful statement in a game that's been dominated by mirror matches. When you're the team that's like, yeah, okay, the mirror match has been going fine. You know, well, we're doing well. We just rolled you on offense with it. Now we're going to play a completely different comp with the same roster. So have fun planning for the rest of the series. That's a real statement map from Shock and exactly what they needed in response to Philly's dominance on Hollywood.
And I mean, that was a Shock's map pick, so they came in well prepared. And now we go to Fusion. We just ask, what's going to be your move?
Going to need to be a big one for sure because, I mean, there was really no answer. I think going to the Tracer Sombra is the answer, in theory, to that boosted Ashe comp. But, you know, sometimes Ons just pops the head before the fight starts, and we saw so many minutes lost to those little micro plays to the point where, you know, this Tracer Sombra comp, it might theoretically work, but the setup is just so difficult. You know, Hisu gets poked out one time, bam, 30 seconds off the clock. You know, you lose a Tracer, bam, 30 seconds off the clock. It just adds up so quickly. Players like Ons and Striker make those pickoffs happen, and Philly find themselves falling short there.
Well, the backbreaker to me where, yeah, they lost the fight anyways, but when Ons got that last pickoff onto Alarm, it's just like, well, that's it. You're not going to be able to finish with time remaining.
Yeah.
And as a result, even if you win the fight, you go to the 3.5-minute first point hold where you got rolled the first time around. Probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Ons, he's a machine, but also only human, right? The series is all going to rely on him continuing to play at that level, right? Because, you know, I think one issue with the Ashe comp is if you don't find those pickoffs, you do get overwhelmed, right? When the enemy gets right on top of you, you're not nearly as effective fighting in that circumstance. So you also want to credit a player like Choi for his work cleaning out the flanks there on D.Va. You know, every time he sets Hisu back, that's almost as good as a kill, a pickoff, right? That's about 50% as good as a kill, I'd say, in terms of how much time it buys you as a defender. So ultimately, I think for the Shock, that's a comp that they're one of the few teams who can play that with no roster change, no fear. That's a really powerful statement.
Well, the Shock, they are one map away from booking their ticket to Grand Finals weekend for a shot at the trophy, for a shot at winning it all. Can the Fusion bounce back? Will they find themselves down into the losers bracket? We'll find out in just a few minutes.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile. And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
The party from the spawn room continues right now. It's Puckett with more Overwatch Hero Trivia. Here we go. McCree was based on an old illustration by Chris Metzen from which franchise? Was it A, Warcraft, B, Diablo, or C, StarCraft? The answer is coming right up. Are you ready for the answer to your Overwatch hero trivia? Well, here it is. It's C, StarCraft. Shout out to everyone who knows Chris Metzen, his legendary work, including his stuff with StarCraft. That's it for me right now in the spawn room, but don't go anywhere. I got more questions coming up. But right now, it's time for more games. It's the Overwatch League 2020 playoffs.
The Shock. They changed the meta in the last map, and they take the Fusion to task. Now up 2-1 here in our winners bracket final. One map away from going to Korea just a little bit later in the month. And Jake, the Fusion, they've decided to bring out the big guns. That's right. There's a substitution. It's a player that no one thought would be coming in this moment. Nah, everyone thought he'd be coming this moment. It's Carpe. He's in for Ivy. This makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy we have been waiting for him, right? He's got such a legacy, such a name in the history of the Overwatch League, really. But he's been one of those few players who not only has the history of dominance, but has continued to assert that dominance to this very day. So, you know, for a roster like Fusion not to start him, you can't see that as a knock on Carpe. You have to see that as in the context of this incredible roster that the Fusion has. It's okay for players like Poco not to be starting, despite the fact that they probably would start on, you know, 90% of the other teams in the league. It's okay because you just have so much talent to work with. And to be able to bring in Carpe now, I think he's always been a player who has seemed immune to any question of needing to warm up, immune to any question of does he fit this meta. He just always performs. So he's going to need to deliver now. Pressure is at its highest, but I just feel like Carpe, that won't be a problem for him. I think we're going to see a very close map here.
Well, that brings us to map times presented by Xfinity. And you take a look at it, both these teams pretty quick, both at the #1 and #2 spots, which makes sense given that they're also #1 and #2 teams on the North American side of things here at the Overwatch League. And both these teams pretty quick at Gibraltar, Jake.
Yeah, I think Gibraltar is just such a difficult map to predict when it's played at this level because you can get full held at first point. You could get especially get held at second point. If you ever lose the momentum in second point and have to fully reset, it's a huge problem coming back in when the defenders have ship control. And then third point, no guarantee you'll cap it there. So with both these teams setting very fast times, like yes, they've bopped on other teams, but going up against each other, I think this map can really break down any which way. I don't think there's any point where the attackers can feel confident, oh, we're definitely going to get it done here. Like, you have to fight for every inch on this map.
Yeah, and I mean, Gibraltar is also one of the more volatile maps in the entire game, right? Where, you know, you see speed runs, as alluded to just by the map times there, but you see holds on point A. You see long holds on point B if you lose momentum as the attackers. I mean, this is a map that can really break down in any number of ways, and it's what makes it so exciting, especially in a playoff situation. And now the Fusion, they're not necessarily fighting for their playoff life, but they are fighting to get to the Grand Finals weekend here and now. I don't think anyone wants to drop to the losers bracket where teams like the Justice have been so scary. So we'll see if Fusion could do what I think a lot of people want to see here and bring this to a map 5.
And it will be the Ashe Sombra for Philadelphia Fusion with Carpe taking the reins on the Ashe. Hisu sticking with his very consistent Sombra. Switch from Alarm over to the Ana. Astro taking the reins on Mercy. This will be an interesting comp. I think the power of this comp, once it starts cycling ultimates, can't be underestimated. You have so much power. You can win fights with just Nano, just EMP, just Bob, right? Like, the power to cycle is really incredible. But first fight can be hard. Going up against a Tracer, Striker, already on the hero, also a Zenyatta. I think in the first fight, when there's no ultimates, Shock have the edge. They've got the damage edge with Zen, and they've got the space control edge with Striker on the Tracer. So first fight's everything for Philly. They have to get a lot out of it. And what a start.
Well, Mr. Carpe has something to say about it. Immediately takes down Violet. Yeah, the resurrection is going to be there, but there's a reason why Carpe is the face of the Fusion. Didn't play in the first few maps, but they bring him in here when a single shot hit scan is needed.
Yeah, so critical in this moment. Ons versus Carpe is going to be, I mean, how can I neglect talking about that? When it comes down to this map, snipers dominate, right? So much high ground, so much long range situation. You just need to hit the head sometimes. And Carpe versus Ons, there's hardly two players that do it better.
We'll see just how this duel breaks down. The Fusion are giving up a little bit of room here, but oftentimes that's what teams do unless you have a crazy opening pickoff followed by another. It's his turn here, Jake, where things are really decided, and Carpe taking every opportunity for some damage.
Yeah, things have slowed down, but right now they're about to pop off. Snipers taking the duel at long range. Right now, Carpe giving space. This is the power of Discord Orb. He's pretty scared to fight with that Discord on, and right now that's giving Shock more pressure on the card, although Nano online for Alarm. expect that to come to Sato, diving into the server room. There he goes.
And there it is. Yeah, it's on Sato immediately. He takes the initiative, and Violet's down again. The Fusion have made it their mission. Isolate the Zen, take him out early, whether it be Carpe or the front line. It's been effective so far.
Yeah, I mean, Zen, it's the greediest hero you can play in Overwatch besides Bastion in terms of just how much raw output you have. But at the same time, your survivability is worst in class. Right? There's not a hero with worse survivability than Zenyatta. So definitely tough to stay alive for Violet, especially against dives from Philly. But I love this Bob. Open the fight up, force some sort of counter. We'll just be Bob for Bob right now.
Both Bobs going to be fighting for the payload. Carpe's Bob falling for really heavy pressure. And might be thinking, when do I get fair fight versus Carpe? Well, you don't have to fight Carpe. Choi and Smurf. Well, but we were watching the server room. They got into the back and completely opened things up for the Shock. That's going to be point A.
So important that On survives this fight too, because now the attackers really get the dominant momentum they're hoping for in this situation. Oh, that kill could have been big from Sato, but for Ons to stay alive, look, he's going to be taking top ship now, and retaking into this is such a pain. I mean, even getting an EMP up here at Sombra is far from guaranteed. Alarm's going to switch over to the Zen, but a little bit late on the switch here because he's not going to have any ult. They're going to need to make some big plays to defend second. This EMP, it's got to even, I mean, look at Hisu. What can he do? He's going to run up these boxes, but if he gets caught here, oh, look at Choi, so close to checking him.
This is a big break point in the entire match. You don't want the attackers to get through point B in one go. This could be the season right now for the Fusion. They look back at this moment. Oh, can they hold on here on Gibraltar B? And Funny Astro's down! Choi's able to finish him off.
Carpe strikes back, but that's not the Mercy. That can still be res. Diving from Smurf is absolutely smashed. Incredible by Alarm, but Striker's still there as the Wombo combo.
The Fusion are staggering right now. The Shock are keeping up the pressure. Carpe, 120 HP here in the back, looking for the opportunity. Violet just has to blow the Transcendence on point. Give a little bit of breathing room, but here's Hisu. The EMP, good to go. Just waiting for the opportunity of Striker. In around the side, Carpe takes down Striker, that's big!
That's exactly the shot they needed. Now a lot of the damage off the table for the Shock. Valkyrie is committed from Moth, still trying to fight, but EMP on the Violet, that has to be the end. And Hisu, I think maybe not needing that, but definitely feeling the pressure that Shock has been applying all series long. Smurf fighting. Actually not going to let himself die. With that pick onto Fury, Smurf's going to pop his Primal, stay in the fight, and oh no, a pick here from Ons. That could be deadly. Alarm holding onto Trance with 10 HP.
Sato can't get out! Sato, he could have Primaled, he decides to save it. This is high risk, high reward, Jake. I don't know if he had to use it there. He is going to be able to leap back. But the Shock now have a great moment of opportunity, and they're going in now as a Fusion. They drop the Transcendence super early here, but they do get the DMAC.
Ons kills Carpe though. Ons standing uncontested on the high ground. Rez comes through, but that's the last mistake available here for the Philly Fusion. Somebody's got to stop Ons, and it won't be Carpe today.
Sato probably can't. There's not even going to be the stall from the Winston. Violet finishes off Sato right before, and the Shock get full control of point B in 3.5 minutes for C, Jake. That's still very, very quick.
Yeah, I don't even think that's a misplay from Sato. I think he lets himself fall there, chooses not to pop Primal, because with no Ashe alive and the other Ashe dominating the high ground, I mean, the fight's over, right? As Sato, what can you do? You could go for the Ashe, you give up cart. You could sit on cart, you're going to die to the boosted Ashe, regardless of Primal. Smurf, maybe slightly early on the celebration here, but yeah, there won't be any fights at this point in Gibraltar. It will be when that corner really comes into contest that Ons and Carpe, look, they're battling even a little bit early. A lot of confidence in this matchup right now. What a dynamite over the top from Carpe, too.
That was a long-range dynamite, still hit its target. Enough to charge up the last little bit of Bob. The Fusion looking to drain the clock here on point C. Bob gets sent out. Bob probably about to usually get sent dead. Still alive though somehow. Onto the high ground. Really good damage on the Fury here. They're going to get the DMAC.
This Bob punishing Fury. Baby Diva is kept alive, and this Winston's so low with the Primal. He's got to run, but it's too little too late as Ons. He's starting to take over this game right now. Only Carpe can shut him down, but look at Striker with the one clip. Cuts him down, comes to protect his backline. And this map is looking pretty rough now for the Philadelphia Fusion. Shock's taunts are ringing loud in their ears at this moment, saying, yeah, you could beat us in the regular season, but we'll see who's boss come playoffs. Right now, with 2 minutes in the time bank,
they need a miracle.
It's stagger plays. But Alarm striking back. Wait, that could be what they need.
Alarm got one. Alarm got one. Now but the Fusion, they can't stay on the point. Astro was coming out with the Valkyrie. It was so close to the Fusion potentially coming back out, but now this is tough. The Shock have sent a statement 2 minutes left on the clock on Gibraltar is a very fast time. And now the Fusion, while they do get sent to the lower bracket on losing this, they're not out of it. It's not a trip they want to take. We'll see if they have what it takes to bring this back.
There's only one trip you want to take out of this match, and it's to Korea. Anything less, absolutely a disappointment for these teams. And here we see what resulted in not being able to touch Cart. Sato and Hisu both making plays for the backline at the same time. And Funny Astro, he's got nobody to actually jump to with the Valk, so he can't cross the distance to Cart in time. It's a minor misplay there from Philly, but I think that situation was so desperate. I mean, if they don't find a kill there with Sato and Carpe, then you probably are losing that fight regardless. So maybe they could have had more time stalled, but I think Shaka just engineered that setup too effectively with Ons starting to be pretty confident, it looks like, in the Ash Mirror over Carpe. And Philly, they're going to reflect that with their comp right now. Unless they change it, this is a very plausible composition here. I wouldn't be shocked to see it, but what I am more shocked by is Shock pulling out the Roadhog Zarya. They've learned from the Washington Justice, and I mean, to be fair, this is one of the maps that the Justice have been dominating with this comp on. Like, this Roadhog and Zarya can just camp high grounds, can camp crucial choke points, and the map doesn't really offer many ways to use your movement to get past them.
The Shock have been a lot deeper in composition so far relative to the Fusion. The Fusion have been sticking more on meta comps, and you know, yeah, they were mirroring the Ashe a moment ago. Now bring out the Ashe again, but we'll see how this round goes, and if it's going to be effective. Hog Zarya on the other side, and it's something you got to be prepared for right now into the playoffs because it is an effective strat.
Oh my god, Carpe just dropped 3 headshots in a row at long range. Finally, it's enough for the kill. I mean, this guy just looks like he doesn't miss. That's the res out, and one more pick is going to mean a huge opening into this first point. Ons, he's got to watch his head right now.
All right, Carpe got 1 pick off. We'll see if he can get another. Mercy in play, you got to get 2. Fusion right now just looking to secure the high ground while getting payload progress. It's good, solid movement from the Fusion here so far. Now we'll see if they can get an all-important next pick off as they turn the corner.
Yeah, it's so hard to take control of this high ground, though. Choi's doing a great job. He does get booped down, though. That's a great find from Fury, and the hack gets the follow-up as well. Now that Philly have server control, this is the difficult part. Now they're in the easy stream. It's really all on Ons to get some sort of counter kill, and oh my, Carpe, let's go.
Carpe taking the initiative, takes down Ons again. Yeah, he's getting res back up, but Carpe, I think he's ready to go for 3 as the Fusion get their swagger back. They move forward. Sato's down, but the Fusion are still swarming all over the point. Carpe has a fantastic sight line, and point A quickly goes the way of the Fusion.
Yeah, Carpe, I guess he heard what I was saying about Ons dominating the Ashe matchup. I mean, you can't call that anything less than domination from Carpe. I mean, come on. He just, how many headshots he just hit there? Like, I think if you just look at that small sample size, the guy had like 85% accuracy or something, just absolutely off the wall ridiculous. Again, hack cancel res, the snowball continues, and now Shock, they really need to get a good reset. That could help, that could help.
Ons phoned a friend there, said, please, take down Carpe. Can't deal with this anymore, but you know what? Ons, if you're gonna get res, so is Carpe. He's back up. We'll see if Striker can play interference again.
Grab is available, though. Yeah, grab could be deadly. The EMP, though, Hisu wants to find it first, setting up to hopefully get more than just these tanks. As Choi just gets cut down. Follow-up from Hisu, that's a great play.
Yeah, Choi simply got focused down. Hisu now working on the back, taking down the Bob. EMP, good to go. Choi's res back up. But now the Fusion, they've bought themselves more space here. They're in a great opportunity. So long as they don't get caught by this grab, this is a very, very winnable fight. Now they move out of Eden. Fury gobbles it up in the moment. Here comes the Transcendence, and the Fusion again applying pressure to the Shock. As Carpe's able to find Moth, one of the most important pickoffs he can get.
So critical. Alarm keeps his fellow support alive. Now Carpe starting to dominate the high ground. It's only Striker to contest him, but this man, he does not seem to miss headshots. Fury with a self-destruct, absolutely dominating both of the tanks from the San Francisco Shock, and I mean, Philly just absolutely right back in to Gibraltar. This Roadhog Zarya did not work out. Shock switching comps, tail between their legs, and you can't blame them for it. They just got worked.
Yeah, they have 4.5 minutes left. Smurf gets staggered. The Fusion are looking completely unchained right now. They have hit their groove. And if this keeps up, they're going to be saying an even quicker time than the Shock did just a moment ago.
And Carpe, he's taken that same position that Ash was dominating from, or sorry, Ons was dominating from before on Shock's offense. It's really up to the Shock to break this hold because Carpe from this corner, he's got the perfect cover he needs to just put out damage at long range.
Carpe off on the high ground. Again, a great sight line to be working from. He knows where Ons is, and Ons is getting the presidential treatment right now. Just the Secret Service around him, the protection, but they weren't looking him up. He goes, all right, I will take down Ons. I'll take down the Mercy. Now no one's going to res that.
Both team tanks are so low. Fury loses the suit. Sato dies as well. Striker killing both tanks off with some help from Smurf in this hallway position. I mean, it is scrappy, but this is going to favor the defenders, especially on a fast comp like Winston Tracer. Now this Wombo combo that has been dominating all season long. Striker and Smurf, they're really working the map. On shuts down Carpe. Stabilization, exactly what the Shock needed at this moment.
Yeah, this is a big deal because not only is this going to burn another minute off the clock, you look at the time difference between the two teams, you look at the ultimate situation. The Shock have essentially reset the round to a degree, and it's very possible for them to set a better time now.
Yeah, the next hurdle is Hisu's EMP, and Striker has been scouted by this Sombra. He could get really baited and punished here, because if somebody walks up on Striker, he's probably going to take the fight, and Hack is just too quick. Striker could be in trouble here, fighting Hisu, but yeah, it goes down. The Hack just too powerful there. It's a great find. Kind of gets them into this fight for free. And now you're really feeling the pressure as Moth and Violet. There's nobody left to fight the flanks for you. Ons, you can't die here. Okay, just barely survives.
Well, the Fusion, they're going to try and take the opportunity. Hisu has the EMP right. Carpe's down! Ons gets a little bit of revenge in the duel. The Resurrection is there, but it delays Hisu's EMP. And, okay, Carpe, a little bit mad there, immediately takes down Ons. Resurrection, though, used on the other end. Transcendence now faded from Violet. And the Fusion, there's the EMP from Hisu. Also going to be there. The Fusion were really low into the entry here, Jake. But now Hisu's just going for it.
Yeah, Smurf got caught, but ultimately he had the Primal in time. Protection from his buddy Troy, and now the Primal really starting to take over the game, and a delay onto the Baby Diva. Insult to injury, perfect discipline from Smurf in these final moments. Just beautiful, and now Philly, I think this is where their strategy really falls apart, frankly, because this Sombra, the only difference in these comps is Sombra versus Tracer, right? Which on the surface seems pretty fair and even, pretty similar, but in actuality, Tracer's going to basically dominate every fight where there's no ultimates online. And yeah, he's just going to switch over to the Tracer. Doesn't feel confident that he's going to be able to get another EMP up in time to stay ahead of Shock's ult charge. I think this is a wise swap, but going one-on-one against Striker, not easy for anybody.
All right. Carpe opening up with the bomb. Hisu's down! Striker's warmed up on the Tracer. I don't think Hisu is. However, Carpe is able to even up, takes down Violet. Alarm on the fall through. Hisu's back up. And the Fusion, they get the momentum in the fight. On a slower time now, but still can be good. A minute 20 left to go. And it's just Hisu on the bottom, Carpe on the top. They force out the Transcendence, but the Fusion aren't leaving yet.
Ons with two, staying alive, killing off both divers. Now he's got the backline, he's the flanker now, and he's just putting out damage. Diva finally turns, but it's too little too late. They had to trance just to fight him, and his teammates are absolutely coming in for the counter kills. Late Dynamite on the ground, cuts them down, and another reset for the attacking team. So many clutch moments in that fight. What a ridiculous play from Ons. Killing not one, but two of the divers. Those are the heroes that are supposed to be the natural predators of Ash, but for Ons to live on 1 HP, fighting off both of those heroes, completely absurd.
This is a left a present for you moment. Look at this.
Look, gift from beyond the grave.
You know, I'm leaving with a bang. Final 30 seconds now for the Fusion. Their upper bracket life on the line. Alarm takes down Violet.
He's been so sharp this series.
Maybe a little bit more. Alarm falls. Revenge comes in. Final 20 seconds now.
Oh, no.
The Shock so close to booking their ticket to Korea here and now. Sato and Carpe out of the fight. And this pressure from the Shock, from the defending champions, it might be too much here, Jake. They're keeping the Fusion back. 6 seconds left to go. And can anyone even get on the point?
It's so overwhelming. It's so stifling. They have no answer to Striker's Tracer. Hisu forced a recall. Alarm finds a pick onto Ons. That's something. It's going to keep the overtime contested. Ons is rezzed up, but that's certainly not how you wanted this fight to start. Not certainly another pick off. So Philly really keeping it alive in this fight. They still have Pulse Bomb. They still have Primal.
Still in it.
They can finish this.
And now you see Sato on the point, holding on to the Primal, doesn't waste time, uses it early. Self-destruct in over the top. The Fusion are able to avoid it. The Fusion have more on the point. They don't want it to end like this. The Fury able to take down Striker, and look at Alarm. One orb after another from the back. Dominance on the point right now from the Fusion. They just have a little bit more to go. They take down Smurf, who's spinning around. The Transcendence in for Alarm. Waiting. Doesn't need to use it here just yet, Jake, as they're so close to keeping this map going.
Yeah, On's Desperation McCree, Slam comes in, and there's no chance here for the SF Shock with Pulse Bomb failing to find any kills. Transcendence, Valkyrie over the top. It's an absolute light show here, throwing the Pulse Bomb in deep. Just forces the supports back, and wow, major mistake there from Shock. I think that was their situation to win, dropping Ons to spam from Alarm, dropping Smurf to the Bob. Absolutely the worst way that final fight could start. And Philly, they strike while the iron's hot. They somehow come back in, and we've got ourselves a series here, ZP. This one's not over yet.
Yeah, and unlike an Assault map where if this were Assault, it'd basically be over. The Shock would essentially have it, but it's Escort. You get time no matter what, and the Fusion get to go right back to work on their offense. And we've seen so many times in Overwatch, Jake, Gibraltar can go very long in the situation where overtime is a tricky thing, where once you get into overtime, your spawns take a lot longer regardless of what side you're on. So if we get into overtime and the Shock have one bad fight, the Fusion could easily push this to 5 or even 6.
Yeah, we've seen crazier things, and as you said, a map like Gibraltar very liable to get snowballed. I think for the SF Shock fans out there, you have to be looking at Ons right now. Just shut down Carpe. If you can achieve that goal, I think you've got this map in the bag. But if Carpe starts off as hot as he was last time, I think you're in real trouble despite the time bank. I mean, that first push from Carpe was so ridiculous last round. I just feel like it can't be repeated because surely no human could do that twice in a row. But if there was ever one who could, probably his name would be Carpe. So I'm not really confident yet if I'm a Shock fan, despite the time bank lead.
So the Fusion, 1 minute in the time bank as they look to force a map 5 to take this winner's bracket final. We'll see how much more they have left in the tank. Carpe had a very good start the first time around on the attack.
Yeah, now we see Shock playing a much more subdued style. They're also not going to be playing the Roadhog, to be fair. So we've got equal dive mobility, equal pressure onto these snipers. So now I think Ons really has himself the fair fight he was hoping for in this comp swap. So time bank is low. This is final fight. It will be decided with no ultimates. It's going to be all about the picks. So Striker, Ons, Carpe, Hisu. Who's going to get it done first?
We do it the old-fashioned way. Smurf gets hit the Discord orb, backs out early as a result, and Carpe strikes, finds Violet super early. But now the question is, can they deny the resurrection? No, Moth gonna be there at the res. But still, the tempo advantage is there for the Fusion. Carpe has gone into lower ground. He's looking for Ons. Pressure being applied to both the Mercy and Ashe both. Sato, though, very low. Discord orb on him. Can Sato get away? He's absolutely low, and he's taken down. Smurf chases him down, and the Shock with an enormous advantage. Smurf falls, but not before taking 2. But it's too overwhelming for the Shock.
That's such a great tactical reset from the Shock. The way they lost that final fight in the overtime push from Philly, they are very clearly aware of that mistake, of being overzealous, of being overconfident, because it's completely corrected there on the defense. Absolutely playing back, when Carpe is in the dominant sideline, when his teammates have control, Ons doesn't even take the fight. He knows, hey, you want to sit back in server room, you can do that all day. I'm focusing cart, I'm fighting your divers. And with Sato and Hisu getting cut down, that's the issue with no ultimates online. You can't sustain those frontline dives forever. You don't have the trance. You don't have the Valk follow-up. So by just not letting Carpe activate there, Ons plays that perfectly. And of course, the kill on the Hisu, just insult to injury at that point. Beautiful hold, but it's not over yet. I mean, this is a map, like, as far as Philadelphia Fusion were able to push it, they've got good options on defense. It will pretty much be one fight, but you won't be forced into it early. You have a card time to work with. You can allow the attackers to advance and then catch them in a nice dive, but it's going to be hard. How do you keep space on the map going up against Striker, of all people?
How do you contain Smurf is the other question here. You got Ons on the top, and so many threats here between both teams, but Smurf just going always the right place at the right time, Jake. And I think one thing that's worth noting, if there's any point you can hold for 3 minutes, it's first on Gibraltar. I think the Fusion are a team that can adapt, but the Shock, they're real close. They're one fight away, essentially, Jake, from securing that Grand Finals weekend spot.
Yeah, and I think really, I mean, as much as it's possible for Philly, I do think this is Shock's situation to lose. You've got a lot of time to work with. You don't need to win every fight. You just need to win one decisively. So those pickoffs from Ash going to be deadly. Carpe, he's going to have a better performance than ever before. But already Carpe gets the first pick. Almost certainly going to be rezzed here, so it shouldn't be too high impact. But Tank's getting a lot of value off of the res, and Carpe just forced to back off instantly. So a ton of map control going the way of the Shock here. And the full reset for Philly. It's painful, but they're still alive.
The Fusion have to win about 3 fights here, and this first fight has already gone off to a bad start. The Shock looking to seal the deal, and now they're on the high ground. Both teams playing the neutral game very, very carefully, as Ons and Carpe again look at each other. Carpe already taking a shot to the gut.
Sato could dominate this backline if he catches them in the wrong spot. There they come out in the corner. Sato considering the jump. It's actually Smurf striking first. Sato's cut down. And oh, this is so bad. Yes, total control of the cart. Just absolutely worked.
The Shock complete their journey through the winner's bracket. They are first team in North America that's heading over to Korea as part of the Final Four, taking down the #1 seed, Philadelphia Fusion.
Yeah, that's a pretty painful way for it to end as well, ZP, with the final cart unable to be contested. But I think just Shock played that way too well at the end, you know, on that final round, despite maybe messing up a little bit in that little overtime push, maybe overextending themselves, completely cleaning that up, correcting it. They don't let it go to their head. And that's the reason this team will be our #1 seed coming out of North America. You know, I've been a Shock fanboy for quite a while. And let me just say, I was right, and that's all.
Okay. Well, you were against our entire desk. The entire desk picked Fusion, but you know, we didn't get you entirely on record to begin with, but you know what, I'll let it slide. Not biased or anything here in the situation, but look, the Shock, they are champions for a reason. They bring it to bear here in playoff time, but the Fusion, an incredible series from them, back and forth, both teams playing super well, and you know, the Fusion, they get knocked into the loser's bracket, but I would still say my favorite to get out of the loser's bracket.
Yeah, now I think, well, in the past, people have been like, well, you don't want to go up against the Justice. I don't think anybody wants to go up against the Fusion. I don't think that's going to be an exciting matchup for anybody in the lower bracket because, and I think for the Fusion in particular, this is a major a moral hit to their constitution, their mentality, because you came into this confident. You came into this match thinking you would dominate, and instead, you're the ones who ended up getting the short end of the stick.
So this is probably one of the toughest player of the matches we've ever done, but in our player of the match presented by Xfinity, where you could arguably give it to any player on any team, one player a bit above the rest. We went to the stats for the tiebreaker, and it's Smurf. Smurf, who's been so consistent, so good for the Shock all year long, again showing up where it matters most, Jake, and I feel like there's just about nothing that Smurf can't do.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of players having great performances in this series, but the one thing that I think Shock had decisively in their favor was that Winston Tracer combo. Smurf and Striker are just so deadly in combination. Smurf sets him up perfectly, plays his life very carefully, but will also sacrifice it for sufficient value because he knows that he's got a player like Striker behind him ready to clean up those frags that he sets up, that he serves up on a platter. So really beautiful work by Smurf. We saw a lot of times later in that series, it was Sato going down first, Smurf electing to play a passive game, which I would say is not the traditional style for Winston in that comp. Usually you want to initiate first, but Smurf read that situation perfectly, realized that Carpe could be nullified just by playing sightlines, so Smurf just plays the backline, and the fact that he can make that strategic adjustment on the fly, no questions asked, there's a reason he's player of the match, there's a reason his stats are incredible. It's because he's a top tier player and he's got great decision making.
So just a review, here was our winner's bracket in its entirety, and we had some ridiculous matches all along the way, and you know, this is sort of the final crowning piece here, and it was fantastic. Everything you'd want out of a #1 versus #2 seed match. Yeah, it didn't go to 5, but it was close from beginning to end. And the Shock, they get themselves into that Final Four for Grand Finals weekend, and now you take a look at the losers bracket. There's a new addition there. Whoever wins our next match in Justice versus Mayhem, they get to go up against what will probably be a pretty angry Philadelphia Fusion team.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to consider the matchups possible for Philly, right? I think, going up against, I think being Philly, you'd want to go up against the Florida Mayhem because at least they're a known quantity. At least they're playing a strategy that you understand, that is a lot of teams are playing, you practiced against. But going up against Roadhog Zarya, the way Justice have made it work, better than anybody else in the league, I would say at this point, for teams that just don't switch off that comp, they're unique. So I think they're a pretty scary opponent for anybody, even a team as strong as Philly.
Well, you know what? We got an old treat for us here. A blast from the past, if you will. An old interviewing pro. We got Danny with odds.
Jake and ZP, thank you very much. What is up, everybody? I'm back. My name is Danny Lim. I am here with Ans from San Francisco Shock for a post-match interview. Ans, first of all, congratulations on your big win. You guys are going to Korea. Now, 일단 한국말 제가 다시 해드리면은 안 선수 일단 오늘 이기시고 너무나도 축하드리고요.
네네.
이제 그럼 질문을 시작해 보도록 하겠습니다. So my first question is, we saw an incredible Sombra versus Sombra play today. You against Hisu. Now, how are you able to beat him in today's match? 오늘 경기에서 희수 선수와 또 안츠 선수의 좀 굉장한 솜브라 플레이를 많이 봤는데 어떻게 해서 안츠 선수가 그 필라델피아 퓨전의 솜브라를 잘 이길 수 있게 됐는지 궁금하네요.
일단 솜브라는 팀 합이 제일 중요한 영웅인데 이제 첫 번째 리장 타워 맵에서 상대 팀의 플레이하는 방식 같은 거를 좀 알아가는 단계였고 그 다음부터는 이제 슬슬 뭔가 감을 잡기 시작해서 되게 상대방의 팀 플레이를 약간 좀 읽어서 그거를 파헤치는 방법을 잘 한 것 같아요.
Alright, so using Sombra in a team, what it really boils down to is Sombra is a hero that's it's very good for team play. So on Lijiang, when we first played against Philadelphia Fusion, we're sort of gauging how the Philadelphia Fusion were using their Sombra. So we're trying to understand how they were playing, what they were trying to do. So we were trying to gauge that in the first map. After that, after I sort of understood what they're doing, I think we sort of made a team play together, and that's how we were able to come out on top. All right, great. Second question. Now, on the third map on Volskaya, we saw that San Francisco Shock had slight composition changes. I would like to know, was the reason of that composition change? Was it because you guys didn't want to do the mirror match against Philadelphia Fusion with the Sombra and Reaper, or was it more of a strategic choice for that Volskaya map specifically? 두 번째 질문은 세 번째 맵이었던 볼스카야에서 쇼크 팀이 조합을 좀 바꾸는 걸 저희가 봤어요.
네네.
그거에 대해서 좀 궁금한데 아무래도 그게 좀 미러전을 하기 싫어서 둠이래. 리퍼 솜브라 미러전을 좀 피해서인지 아니면은 이게 팀적으로 원래 얘기가 돼 있던 거였는지 어떤 건가요?
이거는 저희 팀이 준비한 전략이라고 보셔도 될 것 같아요. 되게 연습도 많이 했고 고민도 많이 해서 나온 결과물이기 때문에 이거는 전략으로 말씀하도록 하겠습니다.
I would say that the reason for changing up the comp in Volskaya was because of strategy. We actually put in a lot of thought and practice into it, so that is why we switched up the comp in Volskaya. All right, so you guys are going to the grand finals. You guys are going to Korea. Now, my question is about the meta of Overwatch right now. Would you say that North America has a better understanding of the meta and the composition compared to APAC region? 자, 다음 질문은 이제 드디어 그랜드 파이널 한국에 가시게 됐는데 그 경기를 이제 그랜드 파이널에서 하실 때 아무래도 이제 좀 메타에 대한 질문을 좀 하고 싶어요. 안스 선수가 보시기에는 이 미국 쪽, NA 쪽이 아시아 쪽보다 좀 메타에 대한 이해도가 더 높다라고 생각을 하시나요?
네, 저는 그렇게 생각하고 있어요. 이게 왜냐면은
이유가 있다면
이제 저희가 아시아 팀과 이제 붙어보지를 못했기 때문에 이제 아시아 팀은 왜 어떠한 이유로 이런 조합을 쓰고 있는지 이제 그거를 저희가 해볼 수가 없는 상황이기 때문에 저희가 생각하기에는 저희가 더 개념이 좀 더 좋은 것 같습니다.
I would like to say that yes, we do. NA region has a better understanding of the meta compared to APAC region. But again, because we haven't really played against the Asia teams yet, we can't really say for sure. But I would say that NA does have a better understanding of the meta. Okay, cool. Thank you. Last and final question for you, Ons. Grand Finals. Who do you want to face? Who do you want to beat in the Grand Finals and why? 자, 마지막으로 좀 재밌는 질문이요, 안스 선수. 파이널에 가면서 이 팀은 우리가 꼭 이기고 싶다. 꼭 한번 붙어서 너네들은 우리가 이기겠다 하는 팀이 있다면 어떤 팀이 있을까요?
그래도 상하이지 않을까. 상하이에는 이제 저랑 같은 팀이었던 립 선수도 있기 때문에 이제 똑같은 팀에서 활동했던 메이딜러를 누가 더 잘하는지를 보는 게 되게 재밌을 것 같아요.
Alright, I would say definitely the Shanghai Dragons because Lip was we were in the same team. Lip and I were in the same team, so I think it'll be a fun matchup between Shanghai Dragons and the San Francisco Shaw to see who the better DPS is in that game. Alright, Ans, thank you so much for your time and thank you so much for the interview. Everybody, don't go anywhere because next match 2, Washington Justice versus Florida Mayhem coming to you very, very soon. Stick around. See you guys later.
Thank you.
감사합니다.